be the first year I agree with most of those.
Really? Because I had a huge bone to pick with the party game.
With the party one?
Yeah, with the mind winning party game.
Yeah,
well, I'm sure Trent will be there with you on that one.
For starters, I don't like the game in the first place, but that's like neither here nor there. Whether or not you like it, and I appreciate, I have friends that like it, but it's not a party game. Maximum it plays 4 people, and it kind of like, I don't want to say it requires silence, but it strongly kind of implies that you should be like silent and thoughtful. So I don't know what kind of party you're having where you want to sit around with 3 other people in silence, but that's not the kind of party I want to be invited to.
Yeah, remember, a lot of board gamers are introverts.
Yeah.
Let's all sit in a room and not
like party games are like the antithesis of that, Andy. Like party games are the one time when you're like, okay, fine, I'll be social.
Yeah, I mean,
but you hate them, Andy.
There are categories for like solo games and for Euro games and whatnot, but I don't know. That's just my personal gripe.
Instead of party games, it's like social experiment.
Yeah. Social experiment. So there would have been like that and Northern Pacific as your 2 choices.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. No, I see exactly where you're coming from there, Eric, on that. I mean, like the mind getting party game. I mean, was the game considered a party game when they did that? Because I feel like the game and the mind are sort of like same sort of idea, only one is.
I don't know. I don't think the game made those kind of waves where it was in any sort of golden geek discussions. So I don't I could hit up BGG and see how they classify it, but
yeah.
Well, I think it was nominated for the Spiel.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
When it's like nominated by like the general public, you there's weird things that can happen there.
Yeah, that's the Root is an interesting game, and but it like swept like every award.
Mm-hmm. It's called hype.
every award that the Mind didn't win. Oh, except Brass won 1 award. That's like 20 years old, and that managed to win the best strategy game.
Yeah,
does that say something? That 2018's best strategy game was originally printed. When is that game from? I don't know.
Oh my god, it's like that was an old Tree Frog printing from way back in the day. Yeah, when I saw that was like one best strategy game of the year. I'm like,
no, it was Birmingham. Like it technically was the new.
Oh, it was the new map.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess same mechanics with some tweaks. That's right. It had beer in it. You put beer in the barrel, game and it's a new game. Okay. Maybe I can buy that. Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, for the record, I tried to look up the game on Board Game Geek, but because of it being the stupidest name for a game, it's coming up. It's not coming up. A lot of games are coming up because they have the board game in the title, though.
Yeah, that's pretty possible to find. For a while there, I actually had the German subtitle memorized so that I could actually find it when I needed to on Board Game Geek. So long du kannst or something like that. I forget it now.
Although to be fair, with root sweeping, that's not as bad as what was it? The last year, the Dice Tower Awards, where I think Cephalofair Games there had to get another carry-on to carry back all those Dice Tower trophies he walked away with. He had 6 of those things.
No, the only thing I saw on the Board Game Geek Awards was that Cataclysm got runner-up for War Game, and I was surprised just to even see it on the list. I was like, "Wow, that's
I was kind of surprised that Rome versus Carthage did win it because, I haven't played it yet, but there was a lot of people that found the rules a big barrier to entry.
Wasn't that already released before?
Yeah, that was a reprint of.
Once again, Eric,
that doesn't matter. It's a popularity contest.
No, it's okay. They had a new map on the back side of the board.
Okay, cool. Okay. All right, I'm there. Word.
That's why it's now Hannibal at Hamilcar, because there's the Hamilcar part.
I thought that was what it used to be called too.
I'm really glad you guys are. explaining this to me because I just feel like I'm too old to understand at some point looking at this stuff.
The Brass Birmingham is one that won. So at least it's a new like version of the game. I guess like having recently been playing it quite a bit. Yeah, it's certainly to me feels like it could be considered a sequel, but I don't know. Would sequels be included in Golden Geeks if they were like clearly like, you know, something was called like 2 in the title?
I don't know. I don't know. How deep's the well? If the abyss stares at you, does it stare back? I don't know.
Yeah. I want to play the Quacks of Quedlinburg. I mean, that was one that got, I think, nominated for the Spiel, the Kenner Spiel, you know, like the connoisseur.
It won the KDJ.
It did. Okay. And then it won the family game then from Board Game Geeks. So like this classification, it's like a classification war at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the SDJ, the SDJ has been getting lighter and lighter, which is why they created the KDJ, and then the KDJ seems to be getting lighter and lighter too. So now they're gonna have to create like another one. I don't.
Yep.
I don't know. At one point, SDJ will just bump off the Kinderspiel one. I don't know. Yeah, they're like eating their own tail over there. I don't know what's going on with that.
Well, I mean, maybe thinking about it as a pyramid, right? Where when it first came out, it was like there was so few games included in the pyramid that it really didn't matter if it came from the bottom or the middle or the top.
Yeah, well, you say that, but my buddy brought over Tikal last month, and I'd never played it, and I was like, "Oh, it's a little SDJ game." And then, like around 9, my like steam is coming out of my ears because I'm trying to plan 10 action points, and it took like 2 hours to play, which is fine. But like, I was like, "This is not what I was expecting."
No. That game freezes me up like crazy too.
Yeah, that game would be in the running for the KDJ now. You know,
is that because it hits that boundary?
Like be a heavier game than, you know, they might not. I don't know. They'd probably still consider.
Yeah, it may be too heavy for the Kennerspiel now.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But as we keep on adding like you know more tiers to the pyramid, right? It becomes more like, well, this thing from the bottom of the pyramid does not at all relate with the top of the pyramid. We need a new award for the, you know, the stratosphere versus the troposphere versus the atmosphere. And
I'll just go look at the golden elephant and the Spiel Portugal award. Then I'm covered.
Yeah, there was a couple of years there. Whichever one won, like the Great Western Trail, I think it was last year, the year before. That one seemed to be, for about 3 or 4 years in a row, it seemed like that was the most relevant one. Was it the Deutscher Spielpress seemed to get a pretty decent selection? I don't know.
Yeah,
that Portuguese one you're talking about, I think that might be what I'm talking about too, Andy.
Yeah, like they had winners like Keyflower and Madeira and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, so I should look over here. Yeah, those are the guys that do What's Your Game now that are part of that. They do that convention and award.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So apparently Quacks is a bag builder. I did not realize that it was a bag builder similar to Orleans.
Yeah, it is not. It is a bag builder push your luck.
Oh.
So you're dumping stuff in a bag. You're buying little potion ingredients and you're dumping them in a bag, and then you're pulling them out. And the more you pull them out and place them in a spiral, and the further along your spiral gets, the more points you get. But if you pull out so many of a certain ingredient with little white ones, you like bust, and then you can't get points.
Oh, well, you know,
all the ingredients you buy have special powers. So it's kind of like, it's very, you know, I don't want to say they combo, but it's very satisfying to be pulling out all these ingredients that are all doing these crazy things.
Sounds cool. I mean, I would have to say that when originally Push Your Luck was advertised for Mystic Vale, I was like, I'm not sure. I'll give it a try. And then I played it twice, and I was like, I hate it. I just hate it. I can't stand it, and I'm only going to keep it because, you know, somebody close to me likes it, and that's it. And now, like later on down the road, I've played like an online implementation of it, and I've probably played 200 games of it, and I'm like, actually, I did not respect it. I you know, 2 games in, and I really didn't give it the credit it was due. So ultimately, you know, postmodernism, you can't know anything.
Well, I will just say about Mystic Vale that I am thankful Mystic Vale exists, because if it wasn't for that, I don't think Custom Heroes would exist, which is the craziest like shedding game I've ever played.
Yeah.
If you know, like card shedding games.
Well, like
ladder climbers.
Okay.
The ones where you're trying to lose all the cards in your hand.
Teach you.
Yeah, but it's not partners. It's individuals. But you use the clear cards, so you're building crazy cards.
Wow.
Every round, and then at the end of each round, they get shuffled back. So then the next round, the cards are crazier and crazy. Yeah, it's a really.
Is it like group creating the cards then, because you're getting dealt cards that other people?
Yeah. So on like turn 1, you can add stuff in, and it's going to make the card better. But then after that round, the cards will get shuffled up, and it may get dealt to your opponent. So they'll have it to shove it back in your face in round 2.
Nice. Wow, that sounds interesting. You said it's called Custom Heroes?
Yeah, it's also by AEG, and it uses those same clear plastic cards because you could like stick like 3 or 4 of them in one sleeve.
Gotcha. Well, I'm excited for that Edge of Darkness. So I've not played it or know anything about it. Aside from just that I'm participating in its Kickstarter and still getting the occasional updates about how apparently that one was what they pared down Mystic Vale out of. They like sort of extracted Mystic Vale from the larger game, and now they're publishing the larger game that is Edge of Darkness. And we have Trent.
Trent,
I'm here.
Welcome, Trent. Trent apparently has been doing a lot of high kicks, I think.
Yeah, so I'm a brown belt in Taekwondo, and one of the things my school does is they don't award new belts very often, but you have to do a lot of like maintenance tests. Like you go do a test and the black belts see how good you are. And I have one on Saturday, and so I was prepping for it tonight, and I'm tired.
Well, just about time, then. We were just talking about how the Mind won the party game for
the Golden Geeks.
And Eric had some fun way of putting how it's like pretty unique party game. That definition is pretty wide.
What kind of party are you playing the Mind at?
That's pretty much a good synopsis of what I said. Yeah.
This is my party group where we like silence and small numbers.
It's a filler for gamers. I don't know how it's really a party game. It's a filler for gamers, I think.
They also played it listed as a card game, which sure, certainly it's a game played with cards.
It's the party game for monks who have taken a vow of silence.
What category do you put that thing in? Card game is probably the only thing, I guess. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Social experiment.
Is there a social experiment category? Yeah, exactly. It would be competing with Northern Pacific.
Yes, that's what Andy said. Yeah, you guys, 2 peas in a pod. You're getting too alike now. Right. So this is my co-host, Andrew, Trent, Ryan, Dennis, and Ham. I just realized, by the way, Andy, that you are Andrew Ryan.
Oh yeah.
You are one of my favorite characters in BioShock.
I know.
Would you kindly?
Would you kindly? A man chooses.
I think BioShock is the last video game I played to completion. Which coincidentally was 10 years ago, and I have a 9-year-old daughter, so you could do the math and figure out why I don't play video games anymore.
Yeah,
there you go.
I got that.
I recently replayed it, and Eric, if you do get a chance to come back into the hobby, I would say
I bet it holds up, right?
It does. It certainly does. It actually holds up, in my opinion, better. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of people that love BioShock Infinite, and I do too. Like, I love it, but like the original BioShock is one that I don't remember being as good as I did on the replay. So good.
BioShock 2 now, there's gold.
I like BioShock 2 as well, but it doesn't. It gets a lot of hate. I liked it, but it's certainly not the same caliber. It's not that permanent perennial like best ever game. It's largely a good game that's very derivative and still reaches some narrative highs. Worth a play considering, but yeah, it's not that great. Well, Trent's going to be passing out on us here if we don't get started. So
we need to get started, and If I just die in the middle, I'll just disappear, which is possible.
Okay. Just like slowly slide off to the side, and we'll get to that.
You should kindly go on a goose chase. I think that's about what the last 13 minutes have been. Thanks for putting up with us here. We got some fellas in the chat, some folks in the chat here. Ray, Murd, Carter, and I think Norm was in there for a minute or two early. But anyway, welcome everybody here who's here for the live recording, and also introducing, if you've never encountered Eric before, we have Eric Buscemi here. So yes, welcome to our community here, I guess I should say, and we'll certainly be reintroducing you to the public on the podcast in a second. But just so that you can all warm up to Eric and welcome him to this community of outlaws. So, all right. I'm going to go ahead and start. 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, a podcast about board games. I'm the host of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, Joe Sallin. Tonight we have a special guest, one who has brought many people together over the last few years. First, starting out as a podcaster and content creator, and now bringing people together through a media channel, of which The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly is a member. And that kind person is Eric Buscemi. Eric Buscemi of the Cardboard Horde, and Eric and I you know what? You're gonna kill me here. It's not Tim and Eric in the morning, or is it
Patrick?
Patrick and Eric. Crap. Okay, darn it. I was like, oh, I knew that's the famous Tim and Eric, but it might just so happen to be you guys too. All right, Patrick and Eric in the morning, which is just like Tim and Eric in the morning. It's a lot of like busted blood vessels and awkward silences, right? Sorry, I'm just
okay.
I love Tim and Eric too. Anyway, Patrick and Eric in the morning. Eric, thanks for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We're going to be talking tonight for our podcast topic about the Punchboard media, and as a place to find content, as well as a tool for connecting content creators, how that came to be, and what exactly else, anything else that Eric would like to share with us about something that is certainly a really cool community to be a part of. And just in general, something to definitely help get word out, and something that has certainly helped get a lot of words out already. Anyway, that'll be during our topic. Before that, we will review board games, and after that, we will hype games as well. We have everyone here tonight for as long as Trent Ham will last, because he's just had a very exhausting workout at the Taekwondo class. Trent, it's good to have you.
Yep, glad to be here.
Andrew Dennison, who is actually Trent Ham's doppelganger. They are saying the exact same thing, just without knowledge of each other's statements.
Pretty much. Hello, everybody.
And TC Reed, the prodigal son, who hasn't been here in quite a while because he was instead doing like really selfish things, like playing board games.
Yeah, I just came back from my 4-day sabbatical from my local board game convention. I'm glad to be back to talk about some of that stuff with you guys. Got some exciting things to talk about.
Well, so many things to talk about, TC. You certainly have a ton of games. And, since we are at that moment, TC, why don't we just get into your experiences over the last several days talking about Gamestorm. Actually, first, Game Surplus. Check them out. GameSurplus.com, bringing the world of board games to you. I just got Baron Park, the Heaven and Ale, as well as the expansion to Dice Forge, which Trent sniped from our local game store before I could get my grubby paws on it, and a game I could only find at Game Surplus, and one that if you're really into the roll and writes and also really into learning how to count with Roman numerals, Romisk Pokern, or Roman Poker, a roll and write that I've not seen available anywhere else, and I'm pretty sure that Carmen at Game Surplus found out about it at WBC this last year and specifically made it available because he saw its potential, as well as the growing popularity of roll and write board games. So check out those games, and also you can check out the games on the podcast picks. So anyway, find them at GameSurplus.com. All right, TC, now it's your time.
Okay, well, I'm going to review one game, and then I was going to suggest a few games to you guys that I played that were games I thought that you would enjoy, because I really don't like getting on a podcast or anyone's podcast or this podcast and just ramble about all the games I played and what I thought and everything. I want to try and make this as concise and as short as possible. The one game
now we're all going to feel bad for doing that, TC. Jeez.
Yeah, I know it. It's horrible. It's horrible. The one game I do want to talk about, it's funny because we were doing some small talk with Eric before the before this podcast started about, making fun of people who played Euros that weren't available in America. I got one. Guys. But the reason I would talk about this one is it actually does it. I actually looked it up, and it looks like it does have an American release at some point. So I think there might be some value in talking about this. And I'm going to need your help to pronounce this one, because this game is based, the title of it is I think it's a city in Chile. Mm-hmm. And I think it's called Valparaiso, V-A-L-P.
Yeah, really good job, TC.
Okay.
Got close enough, I'm not even going to correct you.
Okay, because Valparaiso, it's designed by Stephan and Louis Malz, which you might recognize from Rococo. And it's a really essentially what it is, it's a game where you're laying cards down like Robo Rally, and you're like saying what action you're going to take. You reveal your actions, you're going to take those actions from left to right. The thing that really makes this one stand apart that I haven't seen in this type of game is that you can break the order when you execute these cards. It's going to cost you money, but you can. So if you flip your cards over and you see that someone is going to do something you really want to do, you can rush right to the end of the card you put down, but it's just going to cost you extra money to do that. So that was pretty neat. But what you're doing in this game is it's essentially a trading goods in the Mediterranean type thing where you got a guy who's running around the board. You go to a trade post, you get cubes. You can use those cubes to go sailing up north to get cards, more cards in your hand, or victory points and various things. But there's a few things that set this apart that I think's worth talking about. One was what I was talking about, where it's program moving. You can break the program. The second thing, it's a race to 18 points. I am fastly discovering, thanks to Rajas of the Ganges, I love Euro games that are a race. So you're just trying to push as fast as you can to win as fast as you can. And this game is a race to 18 points. So a race 18 points is going to trigger the end of the game. They're going to figure out the rest of the points, and the score usually doesn't go over 30. Another thing that's really cool about this one is when you go to the trading post, there are like these little tiles on top of it, and you're doing the way up to the top of the board. It knocks down another tile. That tile goes to the top of another pile that's on a trading post, and it all moves down one. So you can see what you're going to be trading for each little city. Mm-hmm. Really, once you get this thing down, it's quick. It's 45 minutes. And the last thing I like about this game is that people can sit down and AP on which cards they want to play. Because like, I'm going to go here and do this, go here and do this, go here and do this. There is a little sand timer in this game, guys. And with the first person that does it, it's a la Galaxy Trucker, right? The first one that finishes, wham, throws this things down. You're like, okay, guys, you got till the end of this sand timer to figure out what you're doing, or there's going to be a penalty. It's optional. I highly recommend using it if you're playing someone with AP, because we had to do that, and it was amazing. So all those little things together, a very strong Euro game that I'm looking forward for an American release. I highly suggest you look into it if you're into programmable movement, you like trading in the Mediterranean, you want to sail a boat, you like trading, it does things in a very interesting way, and you will never get lapped on the victory point track because it's a race to 18 points and it triggers the game. Everything I like about a game in a Euro. Love it, love it, love it. That's Valparasio. From I think it's DLC Games. I'm not quite sure who's going to have the American publishing rights. It was designed by the Malz.
You wrote down. You wrote DLP Games.
DLP, DLC, DL something. I don't know. That thing has like.
Is it going to have DLC? Oh my god! Day one DLC.
Yeah, it's got like 5. It looks like it might be Stronghold Games that gets a hold of it. I don't know. I'm looking at publishers on Board Game Geek. I see 6 freaking publishers. So take your pick. Be my guess. So some games I played.
Available on, I did see this available on Game Surplus. So if you want to be that hipster that has it before everybody else, where to go.
Yeah, and I think the only reason we played it is a guy went to Essen. He was just buying games you couldn't buy on the state side. I mean, that's the reason we got Donning the Purple. So, for that's worth. Okay, so games that I played that I want you guys to try that I recommend. Very quickly, I'll make this quick. Andy, have you played Stevenson's Rocket?
No, but Trent has it, and I do want to play it.
You need to play Stevenson's Rocket. Why? Why, TC, should I play Stevenson's Rocket? Because it's an 18xx game, train game, stock game without money. There is no chits in this game. There is no money. Basically, you're using your influence and your stock to like force the direction where you want the tracks to go in this game. Very cool. It's a Reiner Knizia game. So, of course, it's very mathy, which that's just Andy. Like, boom, that's Andy game right there, right? It's like, how could that not be? I got trounced in it, but I really enjoyed it. And it's a game I think you need to play. If you haven't had a chance to play it, Andy, you absolutely have to. That's
I'm down for it.
Okay, Joe, I played another Euro game that absolutely melted my mind that is not available in the stateside, but it is coming. It's called Crown of Amara. Crown of Amara. Have you played this, Joe?
No, I've not.
This game is it's squared. Everything is 2 in this game. You have 2 boards. You have a scoring track with 2 pieces. It's everything's 2s. You go through 9 cards twice for 6 rounds. I mean, it's just I was playing this. It was just multiples of 2. There's really not a way to really mess with people, but you have to optimize. You got to sit down and figure if I do this, that. If I move on this top board, I want to get this good. I got to figure out how to cash it on the bottom board. I can't get my dude up too high. Well, I got to get my house up because on that scoring track, the lower the 2 are going to score. This one, I mean, this was like I played this on a Sunday at the end of the Gamestorm. In my mind, I was just like, I'm done. I'm done. This is just this. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's really good, and I really would like to hear your opinion on it. And Trent, my friend Trent, Roxley Games was up at Gamestorm, and they were, I went and talked to Manny, and we talked a little bit about what Brass did, blah blah blah, and they had their new game out there called Dice Throne.
Okay, I own both seasons of Dice Throne, and my sons love it.
Right there, see, I nailed it. I knew it because I was playing Dice Throne. I'm going, this is Yahtzee with fighting. Trent and his kids would love this thing. This thing's amazing. This is cool. We played like season 1 and season 2 because they were both there. Besides Valparasio, it was the second game we played the most because they're just different characters to play with, and I loved every single game I played with. It was great. It was I was like, this is definitely a Trent game. And Eric, I know you're a solitaire gamer. I'm so kind of here on the spot here, but I don't know what I would pick for you. But one thing I would like to mention going out is, guys, if you guys have not played Tammany Hall, it's an absolute criminal thing. You have not, and you need to fix that as fast as possible. So that was the very last game we played on Sunday to make sure that we wouldn't have to play any other games after whatever happened at Tammany Hall went down. And I am always blown away by this game because it is the textbook example of dirt simple rules with no confusion on what anything does, leading to highly variable consequences that, I mean, it's just everything you do in that game has consequences, and it all comes from placing either 2 bosses or a boss and an immigrant. Fantastic.
That's all you do is you place a couple cubes on a map each round, and then everything goes to crap from that.
Yeah, there's just like freaking negotiations from it. It's like it is historically accurate. If you want to know what politics were going on in New York around that era, this does it. If you want that immigration is such a huge issue politically, this is the game to play. I just cannot recommend this game highly enough. And I think this might be the game, because like every time I do a top 10 list, I forget about it. I think this last game we played is going to make me have to readjust my top 10 list. Because every time I do my top 10, I'm like, Tammany's not in it, and I don't know why. And after this game, I'm like, there's no reason for it not to be. So there we go. Gamestorm in a nutshell with the review. Next.
Well done there, TC. That was pretty nice. Nicely concise. So you really crushed it there. And since I don't want to have to follow that, Trent, let's hear about And I don't want Eric to have to follow it either. Not to say, Eric, that you're not up to it. Just, man, wow, that was a lot of games, right? And done very concise.
Joe just doesn't want to follow it because he doesn't want the 20-minute review to come after the concise review.
I just remembered Joe telling me years ago, he's like, I don't like people who talk about conventions. I'm like, dude, if I'm going to talk about the convention, I got to do it in like 10 minutes or less. Go.
You nailed it, man. Everything that you talked about. I'm excited to try that Crown of Imara. I tried so many different spellings until I finally just typed in Crown of and scrolled down. But it looks really cool. So, and great job just, picking something out for an assortment of different people. Tammany Hall, a classic, and anyway, cool stuff. So I can help chime in here, Trent, but because we played a game of this together, and so can Andy, actually, who's lacking a review this week. But anyway, we're going to hear all about one of the speaking of concise game design, a game that somehow fits an entire big game experience into a small box.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of game designs claim to have done, but I think Tokyo Metro is the first one I genuinely feel like pulls it off.
Mm-hmm.
So Tokyo Metro is a game for 1 to 5 players. It comes in a fairly small box. It's a surprisingly small little box. It's
about yay big.
About yay big. Thanks for the specific.
Yes.
There, Andy. It's about yay big.
Also great for anyone
Andy
listening.
says it's about yay big.
Yay big.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that's helpful.
Yay by yay by yay.
I think you could safely contain about 4 hamsters in it.
Okay. I'd say it's about the quarter of a size of a typical Fantasy Flight big box game, maybe a little bit taller.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in that ballpark. So it's not a very big box, but the game in it ends up taking up a bunch of table space, and it's surprising the depth of the gameplay. It was designed by Jordan Draper as part of his Tokyo series of games, of which there are going to be 12. This was one of the first 3. So in Tokyo Metro, you're basically taking the role of an investor that's wanting to build up stations across Tokyo and invest in the various metro stations or metro companies that are going to start running in Tokyo. The way the metro companies are is that the board of the game is a cloth map that's in the box, and you unfold the map, and it's surprisingly large. It takes up a fair amount of table space, but because it's cloth, it's very thin, so it fits well in this little box. The map depicts a whole bunch of basically a metro map. It's not the actual real Tokyo metro map. It's a simplified version, but it still looks like a squiggle of lines. There's a bunch of lines going back and forth on it. In this game, each of those lines is represented by a company. So, each line is a company, and you can buy shares in that company as one of the actions that you can do. Once the company starts running, each round, a train for that company runs back and forth on the line in the map. So if you have a share of the blue company and it's running, it goes a certain number of spaces one way, and then when it gets to the other end, it turns around and goes back. So that's how a train runs in this. Akin to almost like many other train games in which trains run in it, but this is kind of a more tactile sense of it because the trains are represented by these big wooden pawns, and they move back and forth. Anyway, so what are you doing as a player? On your turn, there's an array of cards out on the table. These cards each depict an action or 2 on it, so it's kind of a worker placement game. In fact, I think that's a good description of it. There are 12 possible actions that could be on cards, but there are 6 different rows of cards, and the number of cards in each row is equal to the number of players. So each of those rows of cards, each of the cards in it has 1 of 2 possible actions on it. So you know that there's a good likelihood of all actions being available, but sometimes one of them might not be available, but if you don't see it, then there's going to be a fair amount of that coming up in subsequent rounds. So if one of the rows has these 2 actions and you only see action A on the cards, in the next round, when you replace one of the cards with a new one, it's got a very good likelihood of being the other action, so it will eventually come. But aside from that, it is a worker placement game. Person who gets there first gets the spot. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go through all 12 of the actions. We'd be here forever. Most of you won't really care. But suffice it to say, there's a lot of interesting decisions going on in this game. You're investing in companies and starting them. You're speculating on companies, which effectively means you're cutting the legs out of a successful company started by another player. There are ways to block that. There are ways you literally have a little guy that moves around on the map, and One of the things he can do is build stations. You can
and actually ride the trains.
You can ride the train. Yeah.
Not that Benegos pulled that off.
Yeah. So you build stations on the map. There's all sorts of different things you can do, but in the end, this really is an economic game. It's a stock investment game is what it is. And what you're trying to do over the rounds is build the most valuable stock portfolio without getting yourself too far into debt. Because some point in the game, you may have to take out a loan. In fact, a lot of times you probably will have to take out a loan. The game plays, I would say, in about 30 minutes per player. I have played it at 3 players. I have also played it at 1 player. It was enjoyable in both scenarios. I want to play it again. It feels like there is a lot. It's one of those games where it feels like there is not nearly enough turns to do all the stuff you want to do. The clock just keeps coming at you, and like, wow, the game's almost over. What am I doing? Everything has gone wrong. Everything feels. It's one of those where you feel like you have a lot of options, but then when you actually look at what choices are available to you, you find that the option you really want is often already been taken by another player. So it has kind of that all the time. It has that like stage round 13, round 14 of Agricola feeling. That's what I kept feeling when I was playing it. Is like there's a lot of options, but the ones I really want the most, Andy and Joe have already taken them. I felt that a lot, and the whole game managed to capture that feel, and I really enjoyed it. There isn't any like upkeep like Agricola, but there is a lot of like very limited space to do the things you really want to / need to do. And the game ends very quickly on you, and if you haven't built up a stock portfolio, you aren't going to have a whole lot of money. I'm really impressed with this game. It's fantastic. I would have been impressed if it was a full-size box. I'm blown away that it's in this small of a box. It's a really rich and deep game experience, and I highly encourage people to give this a try. And if you like any sort of game like this where you're investing in stocks and moving around on a map and stuff like that, and you like worker placement games that are fairly tight, I would recommend this. Find some room on this on your shelf, and you won't have to find much room because it's not that big of a box. And the game is Tokyo Metro. Highly recommended.
I would agree with what Trent said. I think that maybe the best player count for this might be 4, just because with our 3-player game, we ran out of the component-limited stations at an earlier round than I really thought. Like there was maybe 2 rounds left in the game during which there was essentially a type of action that was only available towards like one of the players. I think one of us maybe had 1 station left and the other player had like 3 stations left, but I was totally out of them. Those stations are really important because those are how you actually increase the value of the railways as well as make some personal cash if the railway that you're increasing is a different one. Really, it's about finding the railways intersections, the ones that are currently running, and trying to build very profitable stations there. But then you can also sort of increase the running speed of the trains to get them to go quicker. It's really interesting. I mean, it's got like that sort of metro feeling. And when I think about how these trains run, I mean, I've not played a game about trams before, but it just makes me think about those types of, like if you have one of those like ornaments that's at the top of a room that has somebody riding a bicycle and they like start at one end and then go to the other end and then come back to the other end. And it's just like that, all the time. That's basically what it's like once they get started going. And the way that the investments work, I really appreciate because it encourages you to build, like to start a good train company. And then it encourages you to get in on it if you notice a good train company going, but you're paying a premium for that. Of course, the biggest thing that you're getting is that you're taking money from your opponents. But then there is even a third stock. There's only 3 stocks available. I really like the way that it keeps the stocks to something where every single stock matters. Everything is really impactful. I really appreciated it. Just like Trent said, it's got a very Euro way of filtering the actions. And it's one of those games, like Trent said, like that last round of Agricola, where I'm looking there and I'm like, okay, well, I need an extra $500 to do the investment I want, but I definitely want to build stations. There's 2 open spots for stations. I'll go ahead and I'll get my money and then plan my investment. And then, wait a minute, Andy just took this. Wait, Trent I'm not building a station this round. Oh, God, come on. So it's that sort of, and the fact that exists in this small of a package is pretty impressive. So I really, really recommend Tokyo Metro.
Yeah, it had me thinking the next day because like one thought I had was, if you were playing a higher player count at this game, you potentially could have like two people colluding to like lay down maximum stations on two intersecting lines they both own. And I'm like, how would that work out? Ooh.
Be interesting to see. I mean, that sort of interaction exists largely inside train games, and I think seeing that sort of leak into a Euroized version, you know, the action selection reminds me kind of, it's like, you know, worker placement Agricola, but it's also like 18 Lilliput in a way, where inaction is just going to be gone, right? And I think that players are maybe going to get salty about that. But there is a way to sort of dig actions out of the discard pile in case anything is available. So there, I mean, there's a little bit built into the system. I think it's well explored. Something that I'm excited to keep trying.
For sure.
Anybody else have any experience with any of the Tokyo Metro or any Tokyo games from Jordan Draper?
No.
I played the other lighter ones too. They're lighter. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I like Tokyo Jitaku because it's basically Tangrams, the card game. That's really
then there's
what it is.
The Tokyo Drinks one, the one that's like the drink machine. You can actually mix that together with the game that we played with Tokyo Metro, and you know, you can have the drinks be a part of. I wonder what that would be like. I mean, it sounds like Mur in our chat really wants to try that integrated in.
Yeah, it just adds the drinks as another element that which you can pick up, and they become variable player powers.
Cool. That seems really interesting. Yeah, like being able to pick things up. That'd be nice to be able to do that, since there wasn't a single time that a person actually rode a tram. I mean, come on, we had bicycles. We could get around on bicycles. All right, so speaking of small boxes, the a game that Eric's going to be reviewing, I thought, you know, maybe this could have been designed by Scott Alms, but no, absolutely not. It's designed by somebody else, but it seems almost like it could belong in that Tiny Epic series. Eric, take it away with Tiny Towns.
You got it. Well, first of all, I'll say the box actually isn't small. It's in like a big square box.
Gotcha.
So the game is pretty small. You play on a 4x4 grid. And what you're doing is you're going to have cubes of different colors, and those represent different resources. And then in the center there will be a bunch of cards that represent the different buildings you can create. Okay. So you'll want to build cottages and farms, taverns, churches, wells. There's factories.
And city building medieval theme, basically.
I don't know if it's medieval. It's
factories.
Yeah, I'm not. It's it has anthropomorphized animal art, so I don't. It's not really locked in any sort of. But honestly, it's really an abstract game, so I'm not sure why they went with the animal thing. Other than they probably think it's cute. I think it's a little weird, but. So what you do is there'll be like what looks like a Tetris piece on each of those cards, and the factory will look like the L from Tetris, and they'll have the different color cubes, and every turn you'll place one cube, and when you match the symbol on the card, you can declare, I'm going to build a factory. But now, like I said, you have a 4x4 grid, so that's all of 16 squares.
Yeah, it's not very much.
And then you start building, and once you put the factory on your board, then now you have 15 squares in which you can put squares on. So your boards are, and then you have things you're in the middle of building, but if the right cubes aren't coming out, you're not able to build them. So those become like challenging areas to work in. So it becomes very, very puzzly, considering it's such a simple idea. And then the scoring is all the different buildings score in different ways. Some of the buildings will give you in-game benefits, and then other ones will just score you points. And some of them will be like, if it's adjacent to this, it'll score points. If it's in the corners, it'll score points. You know, if your cottages are fed with a farm, it'll score points. And it's just, highest score wins. But yeah, it's very, very, it's a very interesting little puzzly game.
It sounds so interesting. I mean, I'm looking at a picture of it right now, and yeah, it looks like basically a bunch of really pixelated small art on these cards, but basically what you're trying to do is make that and then dovetail it into other buildings, but all the while being concerned about whether or not that building's going to actually net you any points, because they're giving you different scorings. You know, everything's different scoring.
Yeah, it's a juggling act. Like you want to build these kind of buildings, but they take this resource, and all the different resources are going to come out. You're not just going to get gray and brown resources. So then when someone calls blue or yellow or red, you have to place them. You have to have a plan to build something with those, even if it's not what you want to build. If that makes sense. So you're trying to build what you want to build, but then you also have to be able to use these resources in ways to clear space and make other buildings so that your board just doesn't fill up with cubes. Yeah.
Okay, so once you create a building, that's a recipe, and those cubes do like get cleared.
The cubes all go away, and one building wooden, I won't call it a meeple, but a building eeple, a little wooden building. and there's unique buildings for each of the types I mentioned, with different cuts. So it looks, when you're done making your little town, it looks pretty cool because it's got all the different little wooden buildings on it. But yeah, that takes up one space as opposed to like 4 or 5 spaces or whatever that the recipe called for.
Gotcha.
It does alleviate the pressure of the cubes closing in, because once you can't play a cube, you're done.
Ooh, it's just over. Wow.
And this is from a first-time designer named Peter McPherson. So I think he's got a grand slam hit with his first design.
That seems really cool. Like a very.
And the thing is the game plays in like 20 to 30 minutes, but it doesn't feel like a filler game. It doesn't feel light. Like it's got some brain burn to it, especially for the time, in which you're playing. You know what I mean? Like you're only playing at 20 or 30 minutes, but you really have to think about what you're doing. Well, at least if you want to do well, you really have to think about what you're doing.
Like a very efficient strategy. Like it's very easy to get into, very short playing, but lots of depth.
Yeah, I would say that's fair.
Well, cool looking here. So, yeah, I don't know about the anthropomorphic animal theme. For some reason, it's
I mean, this game is so abstract. They could have just taken all the art off of it. It wouldn't have made any difference. to most people. I don't believe it really would have. Like if you're looking at it, you're looking at what tetrahormoners do I need, and then you're putting the cubes on your board, and it's not highly thematic. There's no storytelling aspect to this.
Reminds me of the game, at least the look of it, without a 3-dimensional aspect, of course, but Town Center by Albion Viard, where you're building with these cubes, just, your red cubes next to your white cube, and every cube has a different way of scoring. But here you've got kind of a recipe, from cards that you're trying to fill, and then just a little bit of a departure there. But the gameplay that you've described here sounds very interesting to me. It's like something I really want to check out.
Yeah, I would definitely suggest checking it out. It'll be out, available in retail this month. I'm not sure exactly when, but it's coming out in April.
It looks like it plays 1 to 6. So,
yes, if you play it at 1, they give you a deck of cards, and the cards tell you the resources. So you just shuffle the deck up, and then you're drawing random resources. But if you play with multiple people, players will declare what they want on their turn.
Okay.
Which also can give you a little bit of an interaction if you know that there's 2 resources you're looking for, but one of them is really something your opponent isn't looking for. You can ask for that one, and then kind of screw your neighbor a little bit. It's not a direct confrontational thing, but there is a bit. And it does make, like, if you play with 6 people, you're not going to have a lot of agency in what's coming out. So then it becomes more of like a mitigation of what you're getting thrown at you and being able to build things more on the fly. Whereas if you're playing with 2, it's, you have a lot of control.
Okay, cool. Sounds like just different experiences.
Yeah, it's fun. The good news is it's fun either way, but I'm sure different people will have preferences as to how they like it.
For sure. That's Tiny Towns coming out from AEG sometime in the next month, and first-time designer Peter McPherson. So thank you, Eric, for sharing that. I look forward to getting.
My pleasure.
Yeah, to hopefully getting it by the time that we plebs have access. So that was Tiny Towns again. I'm going to do just a quick little interlude here before we get into our topic, because I'm just talking about an expansion to the 2-player Caverna Cave versus Cave game. Quick spoiler, or I guess quick TLDR on my opinion on Caverna Cave versus Cave is that I think it's a fantastic little 2-player game. It does the adventuring in a way that I appreciate in a very the tableau building aspect of it is something I really like. The way that it departs from the recipe down the list way that the original Caverna game does adventuring, in a way that just kind of loosens the game up. Well, here in Caverna Cave versus Cave, it's tight because you're adding everything that you have access to when you go adventuring, quote unquote, or activate multiple different potential actions from your selection of different things. Here, you've already created those rooms, and you've done so by digging out a cave, digging areas, and then building walls to sometimes, because a room will require a wall, and then also spending building resources. There's actions that can allow you to obtain gold, and gold is worth points. And then there's a couple other resources that are generally just ways to achieve more food, which is how you build. It's another thing that you need every time that you build, in addition to building resources. Overall, I really love the game. And what's weird about this, I've never played an expansion quite like it, where it is so separate from the base game. But then again, they call it Era 2, and maybe it's, I almost do think the most appropriate comparison would be like the Colonists, and how you can play one era, or you can play like 3, up to 4 eras, and that would be like a full day game almost. Well, here, you literally play the entire base game, like with no changes at all. You even score it. Like, you even get done with scoring. You could just be like, I guess we'll just stop there today. Or you can be like, okay, who wants to play the expansion now? Now that we've finished the base game and it's all over, who wants to play? Because it's almost like you get a little, like, whoever has the most points at the end of the base game gets one extra tile that they must dig out. I don't know if it's like a reward, if you would consider a reward, or if it's actually maybe it's actually a little bit of a penalty, because it goes in an area where you must dig it out before you have access to essentially a new wing of your cave. And your new wing of your cave comes with a new set of buildings that are distributed in the exact same way as the base game. As a matter of fact, these tiles and buildings really mimic the base game in many ways. And instead, you've got new resources. You have donkeys, which actually will collect coal for you at the end of every round. So the more donkeys you have, the better, because it's going to generate you resources. The coal is a resource that can actually be turned into iron, which is really hard to get. Iron's worth 1/2 of a point, together with gold, which has now been reduced to only 1/2 of a point in the second half of the game. And then you've got one final resource, which is like your weapon level. And the weapon level is actually a resource that gets spent, unlike in regular Caverna, where you achieve a weapon level and it just stays there and continually upgrades. Here, you actually get weapons and then spend them to do things. It's also worth points at the end of the game. It's worth a full point, but it's really hard to get, or at least I found it that way. Overall, I think that it feels so similar to the base game. Like, I mean, you still are using your same buildings from before, and it really doesn't add enough, I think. It doesn't add enough. It adds more length to the game. You've got 4 new rounds that are each 4 actions, and you have not only 4 actions, but there's also like a bonus action that is attached to each of the 4 new actions in the game, meaning that these 4 new tiles, when they come out, will actually be permanently tied to a certain specific action, meaning you're not just going to draft them and take them. They stay in that spot, and they are tied to a separate other action. It's all right. It's like I said, it's just more conversion, more resources, and honestly, it doesn't really do enough for me to play an entire base game and then feel like, okay, let's keep playing, but let's keep playing in a way that where we're still using everything before and just getting a bunch of similar, like, new stuff, but it's really similar new stuff. So I don't know. Maybe it'll have another expansion afterwards that'll add more, but I'm just like, if you're going to be playing this, I almost feel like this is like a filler. If Era 2 is part of the larger puzzle that becomes like a 4-era game of Caverna that mimics Colonists, I feel like this would be sort of like that interlude that feels very, very similar to the base game. And like I said, there's subtle differences. So maybe the subtlety is something that I'm not picking up on. Maybe actually I'll ultimately appreciate it, how it's like, okay, well, none of the resources in the base game did this. You didn't have, like, the resources were pretty equal to each other. You didn't have things that were, you know, this is like this, it's only half of it, and you have to get conversions. So maybe I'm just missing out on it, but I feel like the fact that I have to play the base game to get to this, it's almost like I want to just try this. You know, I want to just try it and just be able to unpack it by itself. But every time I play this, I'm going to have to play the full base game to get to there. And that's like a half hour. It's just weird. I don't know how to really approach that type of a game because I've never played an expansion that does not integrate whatsoever with the base game until you finish the base game. Just
I've never heard of that before either. That's a unique way to handle an expansion, though. Granted that. That's new.
It's like talk about like in a way you could say tacked on, but you know I don't know if it is. It is like this expansion is almost like pin the tail on the donkey, and this expansion is the tail. You're just trying to find out where the new stuff will fit in. But I don't know. Weird. Trent, have you gotten a chance to play it yet?
I've not played the expansion.
Mm-hmm.
But I played the base game and I quite enjoyed it.
Me too. It's
did
really
did you enjoy it enough that you wanted to play it twice as long?
Well, I don't know.
That's like a serious question. Like there's sometimes you finish a game and you're like, oh, I wish that was longer. But
it depends on whether expansion leaves the compelling choices or not. And I'm willing to play it, but I can't. I don't know.
I might really be off base. It's just strange that you're just doing more conversions and stuff after having already done conversions.
Yeah, I'd have to play it to really know. I mean, if the choices it sets up are interesting, sure. If not, not so much.
I'm not one to hang on theme, but I'm just gonna come out and say it that like, you know, Caverna itself is not super thematic. It's got a lot of cute, you know, like cuddle room and whatnot, but like it's like marginally dwarves. And I would say that Cave versus Cave is even more marginally like dwarven theme. If you weren't carving out a cave, this game would just be like, you know, farming. That's what it is. And I love the game. You know, especially the base game. I'm a huge fan of it. Like I'm a very big fan of the base game. But yeah, I think the question that you asked there, Eric, is one that I'm just not sure where I stand on the answer to that. Do I love it that much?
I mean, I think that gives you your answer.
I need to play it more, though. I certainly do. Maybe I'll even get a chance to play it with Trent sometime and see, you know, what he thinks about that, because it is, yeah, it's unique. It's something I just never approached something like that. It almost seems like you would want the expansion to integrate, but the designer, you know, could also just be like, nope, I really wanted to keep the base game and I wanted the expansion to be, you know, a continuation. So
the only thing I can think of that's even remotely like that, and it's not even that close, is the North Sea series. They made 3 separate games that were totally separate standalone games, and then they made this pack
the
Rune Saga, where you could play all 3 of them in a row, and it sort of tied them in that way. But if you even feel like that seems like it's better handled, and the decisions in all 3 are very different.
Yeah, that's an interesting comparison, and I do see some of the similarities there. I mean, because they were standalone games first, right? So that's like how I guess that I sort of rationalized trying that, but then ultimately, yeah, the answer to the question that you asked, which was like, do I like all 3 of these games enough to play all 3 of them? The answer is no. There's one that I really like. I'm hanging on to that one, and everything else, Rune Saga and the other 2/3 of that trilogy, is out the door. So, yeah,
is the one you really like Raiders?
Yeah,
that's the one I really liked.
yeah. Dare I say it's the popular one? Maybe is a better way of saying like it's the really good one.
I think there's an argument could be made for both of those. That is it popular because it's really good.
Yeah, it's certainly popular and one that I think deserves its popularity, or at least I certainly understand why people like it. But then again, you know, try them all. You know, try the whole Rune Saga and see how you feel about it, and ignore everything else, every other bit of media that you hear from us. Because ultimately, yeah, you are the judge. All right, so now that we've deconstructed media about board games, let's talk about Punchboard media.
Oh, well, I think that's me. I think I'm up.
That's you, Eric.
I'm still awake. It's not even 11 o'clock here yet. I'm good.
All right.
Good. All right. Well, Eric, let's hear the story. How does one become like the the link between so many different parts, so many different approaches to media? How did Punchboard Media come to be? And of course, your humble beginnings as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty easy story to tell. Is that a lot of this started with the "What Did You Play This Week" podcast, and if you're not familiar with this podcast, which has since retired and evolved in different ways, it was a lot of different people that mostly had their own things going on, like their own shows, but also would contribute little segments to this. It was almost like a board game variety show. And different people would pop on and have their different segments, and then they would also have their own shows. And we were chatting one day online about how the Dice Tower had their own network with all these people doing stuff more collaboratively and in a more unified fashion. And we said, we have so many people already like loosely collaborating through this. Like maybe we could do something more than this and bring more people together and formalize it more and see if we can promote it better and, promote some good stuff for the hobby as well. And that's it basically just came from a series of like, I don't know if they were like Twitter DMs or like or Slack messages or whatever it was, but and it really just evolved naturally. And a lot of the people I spoke to about it said they were already considering something of that sort. And that's when I really got the idea that I was on the right track, because I was thinking of something that other people were already exploring the idea of independently. So then it was just something that just made sense because we were all looking to doing it as well. And that, it just really went from there, and we invited a whole bunch of people along for the ride. And then since then we've brought on more people that seem to have, quality content and similar, goals for what they want to, see the hobby become. And, that's, and I have taken on a larger role with maintaining the site. Like I'm not the founder of it. I'm one of many people that founded it. But I've taken on a larger role with the site because I didn't have a big thing that I was like low player count was in it from the beginning, but they had low player count, and that was they had their own website and their own podcast and their own content they were doing. So they were busy with that. And Boards Alive was in it since the beginning. Same thing. And other people, and I have my little blog, but it's a little blog and I write when I want to, and it's it's very low maintenance, and that's just something I like to do regardless. So it wasn't a thing that had a lot of upkeep and a lot of maintenance. So I took on some I'll answer the emails and send out some tweets and do some web work. So that's kind of how I just became like the de facto, I don't even want to use the word person in charge, because we're very good about not having. We don't want to have a situation where one person becomes the face of the network, because that's not the kind of operation it is. It's really just a group of people that are all on equal footing.
Very cool. How did you go about, like, initially you had the What Did You Play, but how did you go about expanding from What Did You Play This Week into low player count and other content sources? And has there been like sort of a driving like a direction that the the team has wanted to maintain? Has it been how do you kind of walk the line of what content that you're putting out there for and are you trying to sort of round out like oh, we've got a podcast that does that, or like
well, yeah, I mean at first it was just like who we knew and who we were chatting with and who was involved and What Did You Play This Week, which again, like it was low player count, it was the Cubist, it was Boards Alive, it was Oh, excuse me. Um, uh, uh, and then there were some people that were also like guests on the What Did You Play This Week conversation show, like Draft Mechanic and Mile High Game guys that we had like a good, relationship with, and that's how they all got invited along. And then everyone kind of had like, oh, like if we're doing this, I want to invite so and so. And if we're doing this, I want to invite so and so. So like that's I reached out to like Eric Yerko of What's Eric Playing, who does written content, because What Did You Play This Week is a blog, was a podcast.
Sure.
So it was very audio heavy at first,
Mm-hmm.
but then we reached out to some people that did written content or
photography and
video content or photography and whatever else. So yeah, we definitely did try to we tried to round it out in a few different ways though. Because it wasn't just like, oh, we want some video, we want some audio, we want some written stuff, some photography. That was part of it. We also wanted to get different perspectives.
Yeah.
So we reached out to like Paul Grogan over in England, and then we reached out to Katie Aidley in England, and we tried to reach out to people with different, not all like all five of us here, a bunch of middle-aged white guys. We want to reach out to get some female perspectives, to get some people of color, like Things of No Interest blog was with us from the beginning, and then we reached out to some LGBTQ people as well, and then that's how we brought on Open Seat Gaming and Geeky Gamer Guy, and so we've tried to have a well-rounded in every respect. I mean, it's it's never perfect, and there's been people that we've invited to join us that have declined for various reasons as well. They were too busy doing their own thing or weren't interested. And you can invite people, you can't make people join your thing. Well, like obviously no one's getting paid to do this as a hobby for literally everyone involved. So
sure.
So yeah, but and we've created a nice little community, both internally, like when we can all chat and know that if someone needs help with something, or if someone's looking to bounce ideas off of someone, or someone's looking for a contact at this company, or wants to review something, that we usually help them out with someone to talk to, that between the the like 50 or 60 of us in the Slack at this point.
Yeah.
And then we've also built a nice community external, like front facing, where we have a nice website that gets pretty good traffic, and we have a lot of people that go to conventions, and we have some nice little convention meetups too. But yeah, it's been a fun ride. I definitely don't regret it. It's been good. It's been a nice hobby.
Well, great. I mean, it sounds like it's been the bit that you've taken on has been more the maintenance of the website, largely because that was something that you had that's kind of the thing that you had a space for, and it's happy. Like I should say, I feel very nice once you say that you don't regret it, because I'm pretty sure that if anybody has been the thorn in your side when it comes to like making sure that the posts are done in a way that makes sense and is organizable, or at least is has some sort of semblance of organization. Like, I think it's been the content that I put on there, which is like, it's just trying to get everything to fit right. And I've noticed, by the way, Eric, I don't think, of course I'm not going to like send you an email about this, but like I've noticed sometimes when I go back to like, usually to copy and paste from my previous episodes, that like, oh, he fixed that for me.
Yeah, I have a habit of ghost editing stuff. I'm an editor by trade, like my day job. I'm a financial editor, so it's just like in my wheelhouse. And it's also like I see errors that other you know what I mean? Like it's just, that's how I have to read that way for work. So when I see them, I just fix them.
Yeah, you don't get on my case or anything. I can just see like,
because it's easier for me to. I'm in the thing anyway because I'm doing other stuff in there. So it takes 2 seconds. It's not.
Yeah, it's appreciated. I appreciate that you fix it. And usually, like, that's something that speaks pretty loud to me when I see that you've changed it without saying anything to me. I know that it's weird because how do you know how many things have you changed without me not noticing? But when I notice that, usually it's when it finally becomes embedded into my habits that, like, okay, now this is how we write it because this is what Eric had to fix and didn't even say anything.
Yeah, but of course I'm not going to say because it's not that serious. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not your boss. That's you know, I'm not going to start yelling at people, whatever.
No,
that'll only happen if I start writing the updates and he has to deal with it.
Eric, be happy that it's me writing it and not Andy. Andy's got, Andy is the most creative speller I've ever met.
Well, you know, they couldn't determine for sure that I had dyslexia, but they're like, you're riding that line real close. And my son for sure has it. So, yeah, no, I've taught middle school for years, and I'm constantly looking at my students go, is this one of those stupid words that doesn't behave the rules?
To be fair, our language is kind of what needs to change. Like, and that's from an educator's perspective, which Andy and I both can relate with that. Andy is just pretty much given up on anything with
No, our English teacher used to use sentences I wrote as like examples of things to fix in class.
Have Andy take Andy's homework assignments and then use them in your English class, but make it a proofreading activity. There you go.
Yep.
Nice. Well,
I guess I did have a question too. So is there like, and maybe we got to that and I just didn't catch it, but is there kind of like an overall theme that you're going for Punchboard Media? Like, for example, the Dice Tower's kind of overall theme is family-friendly content or something like that.
It's definitely not necessarily family-friendly in the sense that some of our contributors. I was
about to say the Mile High Game guys are going to negate that one right there.
Yeah, they have very.
They're very
dirty mouths.
Colorful.
And I mean, we have another one. The Draft Mechanic is a podcast about beer and board.
Beer and drinking board.
You know, so
we got two on there.
It's not family friendly, but it's more the idea of I don't know. That's not our theme or our motto, but the tagline is like where everyone brings something on the table. It's just we want to be welcoming to everyone, and that includes podcasts that are for adults, and that includes for podcasts that are people for drinking beer, and that includes the fact that we have LGBT creators, and you know, and that we just want to be welcoming and inclusive to everyone. We want everyone to, and that's why I love that we have people that write and talk about light games and family games, and then we have you guys all love the heavy games and others, you know, and everything in the spectrum. I mean, we got people painting minis and other people only, you know, play Euros and everything in between. So I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really something that's exciting to see. Just when I'm going into post. Largely, when I get so busy, I just am posting. But every time I'm posting, I'm still like sort of, eyeing all the different content and reading through people's content. Especially love, the pictures and stuff because that doesn't take long to go through. But there's just such a wealth of content on Punchboard Media that covers a very like the entire spectrum of the hobby, from and the entire spectrum of media creation.
Yeah, and I will say, well, like one thing I'm excited about is recently there's been a lot of more RPG content. Not to say a lot, but we have a few different podcasts that are doing like live RPG content, and that's something that we were totally lacking on. And now there's I think 3 different shows have live RPG. What do we call them? Live plays. RPG live plays.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's like all like Geek and Sundry even does anymore. But those could be really cool to watch if you get the right crew together.
Yeah, it's like what tabletop's all about, right? I mean, it's about like having dynamic personalities come together and have essentially have fun, but also like it's really fun, great to watch.
No, yeah, they would have like live streamed any of our groups. It was like, oh, we start out as Lord of the Rings and end up in like Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Our DM wants Lord of the Rings. Our players make it Monty Python.
Pretty much.
Well,
our podcast host wants Lord of the Rings, but our podcast co-hosts want Monty Python.
Yeah,
hey, you gotta play to your audience, right?
Exactly.
Yep. And that would be like just the same way as lessons I teach at school. You know, I come at it from the angle of an academic, an actual like informed individual, and then
then he paired up with a middle school teacher, and he was screwed from the get-go.
I would have to say that I think Andy in my class would be much worse than anything I have to deal with 15-year-olds. So yeah, it's one of the things that's keeping me in it this long is, it's not gotten that bad. It's not reached Andy level.
Yeah. No, role-playing used to be great. I used to do that back in the day, and they'd be like, okay, Andy, what are you playing? Oh, for the love of God, a wild mage again.
Mm-hmm.
That's good times.
Yeah, Andy's going to be another animal.
Yeah.
So of all the things that are produced on Punchboard Media and released on Punchboard Media, I should say, what would you say, Eric, is the I don't know, what is the most I suppose, what do you think is an example of something, of two different things? Why don't we take two different things that exist that when put together, what is it that they say that like these two different things when put together would create an image in your mind? What would be an example of two that might paint a picture of a Thursday on Punchboard Media?
Oh, geez, I really want to just click over and see what we
Sure, yeah. I mean, between things like another day, like what do you see coming out? Like,
I mean, and it's, you say Thursday, and a lot of podcasts drop early in the week, like Sunday night and Monday.
mm-hmm.
So if you're talking Sunday, Monday, that's like our podcast heavy drops. Now I know that you don't fall on that, but that seems to be like a regular thing that people, they want them up there for like the beginning of people's like commuting week, because people like to listen when they drive, I guess.
Yeah.
But like later in the week, we start to get more video and then written content, I would say.
Okay. So Thursday's gonna be pictures and written stuff, and
yeah, like I think I know today One Board Family dropped a written review today, and I'm damned if I can remember what it is right now, but
mm-hmm.
I'm gonna check.
I noticed that there's also
right now
like designer spot or there's like interview spotlights that seem.
Yes, I will get back to that one sec. The One Board Family review is Tortuga 1667, and the interviews. I've been doing those interviews just to give. So Punchboard Media is just a collaboration of other entities that post there, but I wanted it to have its own content too. But I didn't want it to be about anyone in the network, because then that would send off the wrong message, if that makes sense.
Favoritism.
So I was like, what's that?
Favoritism.
Yeah, I didn't want to seem like I was boosting up anyone in particular, or we were letting anyone, just have like, oh, this is. So I was like, what can we do that doesn't do that? And there's two things we've done. One is these interviews. So we interview people in the industry. Sometimes it's designers, artists, developers, publishers. And you can go back and, you can browse my interview and you'll see a bunch of them. I've been doing them for like 2 years now. So it's a lot of people, a lot of different interesting perspectives on the industry. And the other thing we do is the big list, where we just throw up 4 games in our Slack channel and we say, hey, anyone want to write a quick paragraph on these? Dump your thoughts in. I'll format it into an article, and then we'll have something that we collaboratively did. And we just call it the big list of games, and it's games that someone in the network has recommended, and then they'll say why, and then other people that like that game will just chime in saying why they like it. And so it just becomes like this very loose recommendation from like a collaborative, bunch of people.
Like a written form of the what did you play this week podcast almost.
Yeah, I mean, not that it's been played recently, but it's just almost. I'm trying to think of what it's a
Flame War.
What's that?
A Flame War.
No, they usually skew pretty positive. It's we try and we don't want to say, hey Joe, recommend a game, and then have 3 other people in the network tell you why you're wrong. That's not the vibe we're going for. But
That's my job on here anyway.
Yeah, but if you ever pick the Great Zimbabwe, I'll be happy to give you my counterpoints on it. And I know you just did that for the long view. I know you did. So that was fresh in my mind. No, I'm just bitter because I cannot for the life of me grok that game, and I've played it a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's because you've only played it a few times.
Yeah, apparently I have to dedicate a year of my life to it. Or
potentially. I would recommend, though, if you want to try a game that's somewhat similar, but I would say way more simple and way meaner, I find. So I don't know if maybe the Great Zimbabwe is too open. Maybe that's part of what, because the game Bus, which is also by Splatterspellin, that game, and don't buy it. Just don't buy it.
Buy it.
Somebody else's.
Or Founders of Gloomhaven.
Well, maybe
wait 6 months and buy it.
Yeah, wait 6 months when Capstone.
I was going to say Bus is getting a re-release, right? Yeah. Or import or whatever you call it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing.
I'm sure I'll get a chance to play it at the end of the year, PAX Unplugged, if it's getting released by Capstone. So I'll have my chance there.
So,
but I mean, there are other Splatterspellins. I like Food Chain Magnate. I understood that one on the first play. I don't know. It's just something about the Great Zimbabwe, which is
I've played it a lot. I'm in the same boat. I'm like, I don't think there's been one dang game I played of that where, like, at the end of the game, I'm competitive in the auction. I'm just like, I'm losing. That's all.
I'm usually just happy when all my moves are legal.
Wow, you sound like me playing Lisboa.
Just do something blue.
Did I do this move right in Lisboa? Okay, good. Go, just gave us all the scoring points. I don't care. I successfully executed my turn.
No, remember, Lisboa is easy. You play a card, you draw a card.
Oh yeah, it's really simple. Yeah, it's no problem.
No little mini games inside that system. Nope. Just play a card, draw a card.
Though, actually, this was hilarious. I was like driving around 2 days ago, and literally on the side of the truck was like Lacerda landscaping at like McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tweeted it out. I'm like, yeah, these guys do landscaping. They're probably going to like, put in this landscaping that like looks unbelievably complex, and they're going to tell me how easy it is to take care of it.
Yeah. It ends up being like simple tasks that take you all day to do.
They're like, oh, you just water it. Here's your pH test kit. Here's your nitrate test.
You'll have to stand in specific spaces throughout the day to give it the right balance of sunlight.
You must use this type of bottled water in this area. Oh, God. No, but no, that's good stuff. One thing I was still wondering, too, because like one of the things when I saw Punchboard Media, like I was one of the people who's like, well, maybe we should get involved with that from the Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. Because like even at that time, like it was like it really felt there was like the Dice Tower Network or what, like there wasn't anything around other than that. So and I really haven't looked around a lot. Like, is it kind of like Punchboard Media, or are there other groups kind of coalescing in their own ways too that you've seen?
Yeah, there are definitely some other. I mean, like Shut Up and Sit Down kind of has their whole brand thing going on, and there's another network called Inside Voices, and I've heard some also the Man vs. Meeple is kind of expanding a little bit to get almost network-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a natural evolution of the thing of the hobby. That I mean, not to say the hobby is new, but like the rise in popularity in the hobby and the number of people in the hobby, and then the media that's like kind of following the hobby. So I think it's all pretty normal and natural progression of things. But
well, yeah, too, and just the massive increase in like media and content, like it's pretty easy these days to you have a laptop, buy a mic, do something.
Yeah, that is definitely the truth.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, just the nicest part of the network for me is I don't have to feel, if you're on your own and you miss you putting your content out for a week, you feel really bad because there's a void.
Mhm.
But if I don't write something this week, and I always tell people, oh, go to Punchboard Me if you want to see what I'm doing. They'll go there, they'll see the other stuff. So it's not like I feel like much less pressure.
Yeah.
To put out stuff because so many other people are putting out stuff, and it's all stuff that I would recommend anyway. So it takes like a load off me, and also just having people that know what it's like to do the grind. And because I mean, even though it is a hobby, it is still a little bit of a grind to be constantly producing stuff. So just having people you could bounce off of on that and just talk to about that, it's a nice outlet.
Yeah, and it's like chill for the most part. Like it's a lot of people doing it for fun.
Yeah,
it's not like, well, there's some that I think want to be professional in the hobby and all that, but I think for the most part, when I see people, it's like, this is just a fun, different way to experience the hobby.
Yeah, no, I am definitely not one of those people that ever want.
Oh no, I'm not.
Yeah, no.
That's what
the day I start getting paid for this is the day I'll probably start hating board games. So that's not something that I'm looking for at all.
No, that happened to a guy I used to play games with. Is he became in the hobby and then no, somebody asked me once, would you ever want to professionally create media? I'm like, no, because then my hobby would become my job and I'd have to have a new hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do love that, the ways that you can alleviate the pressure by having, people to sort of that are always going to fill that void. And that's a nice way of putting it.
And then the other thing is like if you ever need guests. Like
yes.
If you have a show and you like to have guests on, knowing that, or if you have a guest bail out at the last minute, like I know BJ from Board Game Gumbo had supposed to have someone on and they bailed, and he was like wrote in the Slack room that day. He's like, hey, my guest bailed, and someone just jumped in, and then at least it wasn't what the plan was, but it was nice to have easy access to a backup plan. And then, in the case of pretty much everyone here, everyone has a mic. I know when Joe asked me to come on, he wasn't worried like, oh, is he going to have a mic and a headphone? Am I going to have to teach him how to use a computer? Like, no, because we've all been doing this for years,
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's almost like, when somebody has knowledge of a game before you play it, you can get, higher levels of enjoyment in a setting where you're not having to teach it or learn it. And so to a certain extent, like any activity, podcasting and just content creation can certainly have, familiarity can help you to not have to cover the basics. But, like you said, connecting you with people that would be new voices, people that have never been heard before, at least from the content that you're creating, and doing so with the confidence that they're going to have access to, the ability to record their own track, and you don't end up with that sort of situation like has happened so many times. And it's been so sad, but when, you get stuck in that sort of, well, I guess we'll just have to either re-record it or just cut our losses.
YouTube was a savior in that respect. Oh God, yeah, I remember those. Hey, my internet connection's been out for a long time. Oh no. Thankfully, we had Josh doing all the editing back then.
Yeah, there was a couple of putting things together that were kind of tough. So definitely, I see what you're saying there, Eric. And there's a lot of different resources that Punchboard Media provides its contributors, as well as connecting audiences with more content. If they like something and it's a part of Punchboard Media, they should certainly continue to pick through the different content from Punchboard Media, and especially a great way to figure out maybe who might share some of your views on games is through the big list of games that you've done, which has kind of all the different voices, or at least whoever is paying attention to the Slack is contributing to those things. All the wonderful people contributing to Slack, and those few people that need a separate email. Sometimes, asking, speaking entirely for a friend here. This is.
And speaking of connecting on a different one unintended consequence of doing this that I've noticed is it's given like fledgling designers, like maybe unpublished or looking to self-publish, or even smaller publishing companies like new publishing companies, a way to get in touch with a full bunch of people that do media just in one shot. So I often get emails like, "Oh, hey, I'm doing this game on Kickstarter," and I'll just put it on blast to the Slack, and a lot of times someone will be like, "Oh, that sounds interesting to me," and I'll hook them up with that. I'll get them in contact with that designer, that small publisher, whatever. So I feel good that it's allowing us to help boost up small, not media creation, but game creators. So I think that's been a nice, and that's not something I'd thought about or intended on happening. It's just something. It's been a nice extra thing that we can hopefully help boost up some people that are getting into designing and creating their first games.
Absolutely, and connecting people with an entire network is definitely upping the chances that a game will find the right audience. Anytime that because often I'll look at them and I'll be like, "Oh, I am not interested in this social deduction game at all," because I can't stand them. And like you could have the best social deduction game ever, and no, they're not for me. Sure.
But I'll throw it into the Slack room, and there'll be one or two people, whatever. "Oh, I love social deduction. Oh, I'll play this at my big game night when we have
my
10
group
people."
PC's up.
Yeah, perfect. And that's just kind of cool to me, as opposed to them emailing 20 people and having one person get back to them potentially interested. So
for sure. Well, thank you for sharing so much about Punchboard Media here, Eric. I definitely see many different angles of this picture at the same time. Now it's like you've done the cubist's job here, giving us all the different angles at the same time, and definitely given everybody an idea of what Punchboard Media stands for. And we are proud to be members of the Punchboard Media Network, as well as with the Longview podcast. And TC, you deserve the connection bonus of having.
Oh, I was just invited. At one point, we had this thing going. Was a Pathological Nerdcasters Network or something stupid like that? And Brandon was like, "Hey, you want us to join along?" And we had like Doc Logan and who else was in part of that thing?
Brian Everett with Cloak and Meeple.
Cloak and Meeple. And I was doing Tatterboard and Jason Hancock, and we were like, "Okay." And at that point, Jeff was leaning on me to take over the Longview, and then, unbeknownst to me, Jeff was talking to Eric over there, and everything aligned, and all of a sudden I'm back in the Punchboard Media, which is like freaking awesome. And then Joe gets on, and it's like, I guess I was meant to be here. Sweet, I have 2 podcasts now. Awesome. I love my life.
Well done there, TC, getting us all hooked up. So
it was all happenstance. It was really amazing to watch it go down.
Very cool. All right. Well, moving now from our topic of Punchboard Media into our hype section. Andy, I believe you have been saving up your energy to discuss not just 1, but 2 games.
Yeah, 2 quick hypes, because I didn't have anything to review this week, or anything I felt real comfortable reviewing. So I managed to get a hold of a couple games here recently, and as is my nature, I'm hyping games that are 10 plus years old. So the first one I'm going to hype is Masters of Venice. So this came out in 2009, and Heavy Cardboards talked about it before, and they were about to stream it. So I'm like, damn, I'm snagging a copy before like everyone goes after the remaining copies. So this is an economic Euro. It kind of almost in a way has an 18xx feel from the stock market side. So you're running these little shops, and there's actually stock in the game you get, which helps you manipulate this market, and you're delivering guild orders and moving cubes around the board, which is going to change the price of these cubes and the demand for the cubes, all in the goal to like make as much money as possible. And at the end of the game, you convert stocks and money into points. But it's still very Euros. So like you have a bid to determine turn order, and that lets you pick different characters with special abilities. And then also you can go to different spots, and then there's some order to that. But what's really cool is like one of the things which is automatically given to the person who like did the worst in the bidding. They are the only ones who are assigned a specific power, which is hoovering up these little tiles, which let them be more effective, is kind of the catch-up mechanism. Plus, they also have their special ability is they can interrupt the flow of play once, as long as they have that character. So you could be in a situation where like, oh, sweet, there's one last cube left. Okay, on my action, I'm going to, and they can go, flip, now I'm taking that one. So... but what's really cool too is you have to be very careful about it, because you get these cubes, you can sell the cubes or you can use them to complete orders. And at the end of the game, if you're stuck holding any extra cubes or orders, like the game penalizes you for not being resource efficient. So you actually lose points for collecting those and not doing anything with them. Because I guess the Chamber of Commerce is just really ticked off at you. The only other thing is like this game probably is going to be fiddly as all get out, which you know, whatever. But it just looks really neat. Like it's supposed to be like a 90-minute, maybe 2 hours or so, your first game of a very like I haven't seen stocks done what I would consider correctly in a Euro game until this game. Like most of the time stocks are just like, I'm buying all my stocks so I get end game points. Like this game, dividends pay out at the different shops depending on what happens. And so that's something I haven't seen in a Euro game before, and why I thought I really want to get a hold of this one. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. The other game I got a hold of that I'm really interested in is Lowenhertz. So if you've never heard of this game, if you've heard of Settlers of Catan, Klaus I can never say his last name right.
Teuber or something.
Teuberg. This was the game he actually developed kind of alongside Settlers of Catan, although in the modern sense it's given a new name, which is Domain. So a lot of people know Domain. Lowenhertz is what Domain was before, apparently, according to most eclectic heavy gamers say, before they made it suck. Because in Domain, you just like buy a card, you sell a card, and there's really not a whole lot of interaction per se. Well, Lowenhertz keeps the same area control, like territory aspect of Domain. But what Domain took out of Lowenhertz was the real tension. Because what happens in Lowenhertz is at the beginning of the round, and let's say it's a 4-player game, which is considered the best play count, right? So you turn over an action card, and there are 3 actions on it. And you're going to start with the first player and go around, and each person is going to select an action. Okay? So they're saying, I'm going to do this action. I'm going to do... Okay, wait, you're in a 4-player game. There's only 3 actions. Yeah. That means someone's going to have to duplicate at least one. But you can't duplicate an action. So if you want to get certain thing and somebody else does, okay, the game now does this to you. First, you get to try and negotiate. So, but it's a very structured negotiate. So it's like, okay, dang it, I really need to place walls, man. Okay, I will give you $5 if you let me take the action.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get to negotiate. However, if you can't come to a deal, then you get an auction. But they call it a duel. So you get an auction for it and see who actually gets it. So
Auctions before they were auctions. Duels.
Right. Yep. And
stakes are a little higher.
Yeah, the stakes are higher in this than they were in Domain. And so in every round is like that. Every round there's going to be at least one negotiation, potentially an auction. Unless there's an action that just lets you take money. If two people choose that, you just split the money. And immediately what occurred to me is if you're reading the game state right, let's say you flip over the card and there's $8 there. And I look over at TC and I'm like, hey, he really needs $7 or he's screwed. I'm going to take that action too. Okay, now we split it. You only get 4 TC. See what you can do with that. So basically, like Domain is Lowenhertz with all the like knees and elbows pulled out of it. And so I'm like, no, man, I want the knees and elbows. So I went online, see if I could find a copy. I managed to. Little dinged in the box. Components are fine. But other than that, difficulty-wise, this is maybe Gateway slightly above Gateway. But it's in that old school Euro Gateway where there's a little viciousness still left in the game. So I'm really interested to see how this plays out in person with other people. So that's Lowenhertz. If that sounds appealing to you, there's still copies out there. Used copies, obviously. But I know I've seen a couple other podcasts really talking this up. So if it sounds interesting, you may want to go try to snag these while you can. But I'm looking forward to trying this one out. I found that these old school Euros, they still have they still have that Euro sentiment, but then again, they still have a few knees and elbows left in them that didn't get kind of polished out in sort of the newer wave of Euros that came out. This one actually came out the year I graduated high school, so which is 1997. Since I don't worry about dating myself, but I'm really interested to see what this one ends up being like with a group.
Well, cool, Andy. Do you know anything about any of those games, Trent?
I played Domain, or I played Lowenhertz a long time ago, but
I was wondering, Trent's been in this hobby longer than most of us have been alive, so
I played it, but it wasn't enough that it left like a huge impact on me. I don't really remember it, but I know I played it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Circling back to the SDJ talk we were chatting about all the way back in the beginning, Lowenhertz was actually SDJ recommended in 1997. And it's 2.93 rating on BG. I'm sorry, weight 2.93 weight on BGG. Just to again circle back to how much lighter the SDJ
has got
nominees have gotten,
and how much nicer. Like the SDJ is almost always like nobody's going to be offended in this game. We'll all be friends when we're done.
No interaction.
or very mild interaction. We say no interaction, but broom service did end up chasing away a person or two from our game groups. So,
yeah, that's happened before. well, let's go ahead now, and since we just heard from Andy, Trent, we were talking about Vital Lacerda earlier, and the game you're hyping is from him, and like nothing else I've seen from him.
Yeah. So I'm hyping Escape Plan, which if you're watching me on the live feed, I'm holding the box up because it just came in the mail the other day. Escape Plan's like the newest game to come out from him. It seems, I've read the rules, it seems a little lighter than a typical game by him, but not as much lighter as I was expecting. There's an awful lot going on. The rule book here is about 24 pages, I think. Yeah, 24 pages.
That's still light for Lacerda.
Yeah, but I mean, look, the text is pretty small on it, as you see. There's a lot of rules going on. I definitely need to... This is not a game like I would feel comfortable teaching after a single rulebook read. This is one I'd want to put on the table and play through a lot of turns before I would ever attempt teaching it to people. So, but as always with him, I'm excited to play it. I have never been truly disappointed by a game of his I've ever played. And so I'm really looking forward to getting this played. It does have a different feel than a lot of his games. I would agree with that. It doesn't quite have the, it looks like you only have 4 choices, but really you have thousands of choices that his games often evoke a feel of. Yeah, that's Escape Plan by Vital Lacerda. And again, if you're watching the video, I'm showing the box on the camera.
It looks really cool. It's got a really sweet art style, kind of like almost like a Pulp Fiction, graphic novel, like that new game coming out for Switch and other consoles called like Ape Out.
Yeah.
Very stylized.
The only thing I heard about this game is I think this is the one I heard about at LyriaCon last year when Heavy Cardboard went to it, and he was like, "Oh, you're doing a new game. Let me look at it." And Vital was like, "No, this is not for you."
It doesn't seem. I mean, it does seem lighter than probably his other games that are out. But I wouldn't describe this as light by any means.
No, that's he ended up playing it. He's like, "No, we'll stream this."
Nice. Well, let's see. Next up, we've got. Okay, I'm going to save one to the end because when you have somebody who's written a word over and over and over in all caps and exclamation points, I will say, I'm just going to quickly talk about a game I know very little about, but it is a new one in the Red Ravens games line from designer Ryan Lockett, and it is called Sleeping Gods. This is a campaign-style game. Which has a playtime that's right in the comfortable range of 60 to 2,500 minutes. So this is because each session can last as long as you want, or like most of us, we're wanting to play a game that takes 2,500 minutes. When you're ready to break, you just have making progress on your journey log sheet. Really, I'm most excited though to check this out because it looks like. We're seeing more world developing from Ryan Lockett, and I've gotten interested in the worlds he's created in Near and Far, and I kind of want to see where he goes in in more of the storytelling side of things, because I think Near and Far sort of captivated me by having the Eurogame sensibilities, an efficiency puzzle underneath it all. But for Sleeping Gods, it certainly looks like it's going to be more about like laying back and trying to pictures yourself there, and I wonder what he's going to do because he's always up to making something that interests me, and I can see what he's going for. Whether or not it always fires for me on all cylinders is up for debate and depends on the game in question. But Sleeping God certainly looks beautiful from the artwork on the cover, and something I'm really interested to try based on a very unique design, whereas Ryan Lockett usually works within constraints that are pretty familiar to me.
Yeah, like this one, I've heard people describe it as like it's a Atlas cartography based game or something like that. Like map building or something is what they were using with it.
That's what it seems to be, and it'd be interesting. I think maybe Seventh Continent did something similar to this, where you'd continue to expand things. But I think here it might be kind of like what he did with the. It's like a map book, and you can continue to flip from one to the next. Mm-hmm. But yeah, basically it's almost like a choose your own adventure, where the adventures are literally maps that you will be choosing different ones, and it'll be based on a decision. You won't know where it's going to take you until you make that decision, and now here you are. Who knows?
I'm really looking forward to this. I own, I think, all of the Red Raven games, and I like some of them more than others. But they're always beautiful. They always tell an interesting story, even if just through the art and the idea of the game, not so much the basic hero mechanisms of the game. But I'm always I've been a big fan of theirs. I'm always looking forward to their stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And So yeah, that's one story game. And Eric, you also are going to be talking about a story game of some sort, like more of a storybook game, mystery game.
Yes, but before that, I just want to point out that 2,500 minutes is 41 hours and 40 minutes. So
precisely.
Oh, I'm not a savant. I use the calculator on my computer, but I'm just saying, like,
more than one day, I think.
So if you wanna bang that out on the upper end of their play limit, you gotta be prepared for a 41-hour game session. So good luck. I bet someone will do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Someone will do it. Right?
They'll get it all done in one go.
Gamers for Cure marathon or something. All right, yeah. So, mystery is let me rewind. Graphic novel adventures. You guys familiar with this series?
I've heard
of it before. Yeah.
Yeah. It's originally from a company called Macaca Editions, which is a French company, and it's been localized and imported by Van Ryder Games. And they did a first set, and I've done one. I did one of them, which was called Captive, and I have another one which I haven't done yet. But now there's a second set coming, and one of them is called Mystery, and it's a superhero theme. And there's 2 pirate ones and 2 Sherlock Holmes. So it's five total. But they're comic books. They're choose your own adventure comic books. But you start with some stats. You get to pick a few stats. You're not building a D&D character, but you get like 3 stats and maybe 2 items or something like that, right? And then on the pages, you can sometimes you can take more items, and by flipping, if you see a number like a semi-hidden number, you could take more stuff, and then and I'll say, if you have the rope, then you have the option to turn to this page, but if not, you have to turn to that page. And so it's a little more involved than those choose your own adventure books from when we were kids, which were pretty terrible. Because it adds a little gamification to that, and also, I mean, the gorgeous artwork really helps sell these things too. But I'm hyped for all of them. I think it's a fun concept, and it's done well. I have done the Captive one; it was done well. It's fun to see where they're taking these different games into the choose your own adventure, into the escape room games, into like, what is a game? What is an experimental experience? And I'm looking forward. I love superhero. Love the superhero theme. Also like pirates too. So and Sherlock Holmes. So I'm looking forward to the whole bundle. But I am Theo, Geeky Gamer guy, was kind enough to send me his preview copy of Mystery. So it's in the mail right now, and I can't wait to hold it and play it.
Well, very cool. It's nice to hear some positive things about those styles of games, because I haven't tried one myself, but I've certainly seen them pop up on lists of things that have been interesting to check out. Especially, I've seen them in a lot of times when I'm like going down the list on Game Surplus, and I'm like, is that really a game or whatnot? And so hearing what you're saying about it, it sounds like it's like choose your own adventure except a graphic novel style. So.
Yeah, and like I said, you get to choose a few more. It's a little more, you get to choose, do I want to be strong, or do I want to be fast? Do I want to bring this with me? Do I want to bring that with me? So you have some limitations, and then if you fail, you could change it up and then go a different route with it. But yeah, they're primarily solo experiences.
Okay.
So that would be the downside. I don't know. I mean, like some people will play escape rooms with like 6 people hovering over those tiny little cards, but I don't know that you want to try and do that with a book and argue about if you're going to go down the left corridor or the right corridor. I'm not sure if fun lies that way for you. Not for me. I do these when the kids are asleep and I'm just relaxing.
Sounds cool to me. Sounds like a nice breath, nice relaxation activity. So that was Mystery, the graphic novel adventures. And all right, it's time.
It's time. Well, you guys know what my hype's going to be, because I haven't been on the show for a few weeks. And one day I was at home and my messenger exploded, my geek mail exploded, my email exploded I was getting all these messages and everything.
Sounds like your head exploded too.
Yeah, and I check out what it is, and everyone's telling me, because everyone who knows me knows that Rex is my absolute favorite game of all time. I will never ever turn down a game of Rex. I will teach Rex. And Rex was a retheming of Dune that I had to settle for because they couldn't get Fantasy Flight couldn't get the license to Dune, and I didn't want to spend like $180 for a print and play or $300 for a 1979 copy of a game. Gale Force 9 announced that they got the Dune license last year, and they have not officially, but someone snapped some pictures out of Gamma, and it looks like they are re-releasing Dune this year. I looked into it. They say summer/August. Now, when I put all that Dune stuff in the hype, it would have been even more. But the fact it's Gale Force 9 has me a little concerned about the whole thing. Because my biggest fear is they're going to push this to next year, or they're going to publish it and take out half the factions and re-release the factions separately. And they say they're around the corner. It's going to be 2 years from now before we see the full game come out. I don't know what Gale Force is up their sleeve, but there's 2 expansions for Dune, the Duel and Spice Harvest, that has extra factions that maybe they'll print out. I don't know. But I am just beside myself with the excitement that there's I would say a moderately strong possibility, just because of the publisher, that Dune could be hitting this fall on my table. Now, my gaming group they're like, oh, thank God we don't have to play Rex again. Maybe we'll play Dune, and it's a more streamlined version of Rex. And what I don't have the heart to tell them is that Rex is the streamlined version of Dune. I had the opportunity when I was playing Twilight Imperium 4 over the weekend. Someone brought a print and play copy of Dune, and I got to watch them play it to see what the differences were. And then I went to listening to some of I think it's the CEO or one of the guys from Gale Force 9, and the designers Herbley and Kitteridge and Odaka. They've come out and said they're re-releasing this game with minimal changes, which means all the breaks that Dune has, that Rex has, are off in Dune. Where Rex is an 8-round game, Dune is a 15. Where the special powers are under control, they're not. There's even advanced powers that I haven't had a chance to play with. It can go anywhere from 2 to 8 hours, depending on how douchey everyone's feeling. Oh my goodness. I am so excited. I just can't wait. By the end of this year, I'm hoping that we can do a Dune review for your guys. I've been waiting. This is my Grail game, guys. I've been waiting forever to get my hands on an affordable copy of this. And if they actually do it justice, and if they come out this year, that means they're not using artwork and stills from the movie because it's still in production.
No, they're not. They're not. If you dig around, you can find pictures. They're basically using art from the
latest.
The nice print and play art is basically what they're using.
Yeah, and that's the impression. They have it out and come and sit it, but that's the impression I'm getting too. Because if it's coming out in August, right, Gale Force 9, I'm still waiting for my Star Trek Ascendancy crap. But if it does come out,
Gen Con.
Yeah, if it does come out Gen Con and they use like artwork, because the book was published in the 60s, I'm strongly suspecting they're going to use 60s style artwork. Then I'm sold, and I am retiring Rex, and it's going to be Dune all day, all the time until I burn people out playing with it.
Yeah. It's Dune's amazing. I'm with you. I hyped it on an episode you weren't on. I was like, oh, OMG. Yeah.
Yeah. This game was, I could go and do a whole episode about how ahead of the times this game was. Came out in 79. The only other Avalon Hill printing came when the David Lynch movie came out. And since that thing tanked so hard, it tanked everything else around it named Dune. So that's basically what killed the board game for the longest time. And people thought there's no value in the license. Thank you, David Lynch.
Well, dude, Dune is a weird enough book on its own. Why did they give it to David Lynch? There's no way that's not going to be just a weird fest. There's no way.
And there's no way, because they had to have known the movie. The only 2 movies they did before that was Eraserhead and The Elephant Man.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's interesting side. I think the only reason Laurentiis gave him Dune is because, get this, David Lynch was in line to direct Return of the Jedi and he turned it down. Can you imagine that?
That would have been awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, but and by the way, if you have not seen Jarodowski's Dune, about the movie that almost came about, rent that movie and check it out. It's unbelievable. But Dune board game, yes. Oh, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. That my hype from here to when this comes out is going to be Dune. I promise.
It looks very likely that this will be dropped at Gen Con. I don't know how.
Well, I'm hoping
popular it'll be. I mean, I almost feel like this is a game that people will buy and go like, "What did I just buy?"
Well, it'll be a game people buy with 6 people and go, "This isn't right. What's going on?"
Yeah. But I already told my wife that, like, if there's one game I'm getting at Gen Con, it's Dune. So, I mean, I can't conceive of company coming out with something I'd rather get than this.
Yeah, and I've got 5 suckers ready to go down who are actually excited because it's not Rex, and I'm just smiling on the inside because I have a really strong suspicion after we play Dune a few times, they're going to want to go back to Rex.
And you're going to be like, no.
No, this is it, man. I'm the Benny Gesserit this turn. Yeah, you don't like it, fine. You're the Harkonnen. Yeah, that's my hype.
Well, TC, I can sense your enthusiasm for it, and I'm certain that I'll at some point get a chance to play this. And I wonder where I will personally feel about how it plays on the Twilight Imperium spectrum. I've never played Rex, but I wonder, maybe playing this one will be it's the original. Maybe it's the way to go.
Well, I mean, it is the poster child for theme versus mechanics. So there we go.
All right. Well, yeah, I don't know exactly where on the spectrum it would lie on that, but certainly look forward to checking it out and seeing for myself. Thanks for being on here, Eric. Thanks to our special guest, Eric Buscemi of Punchboard Media. The Cardboard Horde is where you can find his written entries and stuff. And it was a great time chatting with you. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been a real fun time.
Andy, TC, Trent, it's been great to invite all of us together for a show here. I know that this is tough to happen, and I got some rough news. Actually, you guys are figuring it out right now together with the rest of the community. Unfortunately, next week is I have 3 away meets, so this will be most likely be the only episode of The Good, the Board, and the Ugly for the next couple of weeks. Just because unless I guess pray for rain, community, on Thursday night, because if it's raining on Thursday night, I'll still be recording, but currently,
oh God, I hope rain. Did you wake up this morning and see the snow outside?
No, I didn't, Andy, and I'm glad that I didn't, and I wish you'd not said anything. All right, back to what I was saying.
We'll be here for you when you get back.
I'm so sick of snow right now. I can't take it. But no, I'll probably not be getting home until about 11:30 because I love playing tennis at night. Actually, this is an away meet, so we won't be getting back home until real late because we got a 2-hour bus ride, which is fun. School buses are great for sleeping on. Anyway, before it gets any more salty, as we all get more tired as the night rolls on, thanks so much for anyone tuning in here, especially those here that were in our chat. David joined us here towards the end. It's great to hear back from you, and as well as earlier from Norm and Murr and Carter and Ray. So everybody who's listening to this on your own, thank you as well for being a part of this community, and have a great week of gaming, and catch us next week, or probably next 2 weeks. God,
catch us in the future.
Yeah, catch us in the future here on The Good, the Board, and the Ugly.